Yo, the gameplay of the finals is as smooth and polished as my brain, and the game peaks at around 30,000 daily players on just Steam alone, so the game is definitely relevant for a lot of people. I know the player count isn't anything to scoff at, and the finals is not even close to being considered a dying game, and I, along with a lot of other people in the community, genuinely believe this game has what it takes to be one of the more popular games in the online FPS scene, but unfortunately, it just isn't. Despite the finals being amazing, there's a couple reasons as to why the game just isn't as popular as it should be, and the first reason that I'm going to get into is that the gameplay just doesn't appeal to every FPS fan in one way or another. Some FPS fans prefer games that are either straightforward yet fast-paced, whereas other FPS fans prefer games that focus on being strategic. However, the finals falls somewhere between these two types of FPS games. On one hand, the finals has fast-paced gameplay where there's buildings getting blown up and there's a ton of chaos going on, and then on the other hand, within this chaos, you have to be strategic and use your utilities correctly to either assist your team or to shut down the other teams. And then you have to position yourself correctly so that you don't get shit on by the other multiple teams in the lobby. There's a lot of other strategic aspects about this game, but I'm not going to list them all off. My point is, the finals combines different aspects from other FPS games into one game, which most people might not really like, and I think that's one of the reasons why the finals isn't more popular than it should be. Some people might just want to sit back and play a simple FPS game where they just shoot whatever's in front of them, whereas others want to play an FPS game that requires teamwork, strategy, and proper utility usage. When those aspects are combined into a single game, it only makes sense that a lot of people ended up dropping the game since it might have not been something that they vibed with. Because why invest a couple dozen hours into a new game when you already have another FPS game that you're familiar with and that you spent several years playing? If you take a look at the player count during the first month of the first season, the finals would peak at 100,000+ players every single day. And this shows us that a ton of people were trying out the game to see if they vibed with it, but after looking at the player count of Season 2, it's easy to come to the conclusion that a lot of people just don't vibe with the finals. In the first week of Season 2, the player count peaked at around 40,000, which is nothing compared to its numbers from Season 1. Although Season 2 is a success, it's only a success in the sense that it satisfied the players that have already been actively playing the finals. However, the second season is a failure in the sense that it failed to attract the attention of newer players. This is because, like I said earlier, not everyone vibes with the gameplay. When you combine the chaotic yet strategic nature of the finals with the game's main game mode, it makes perfect sense as to why a lot of people have left the finals in favor of their preferred FPS game, which leads us into probably the biggest reason why the finals isn't a more popular game, and that is the game's main game mode, Cash Out, just not being new player friendly. I like Cash Out, but I understand how complicated it can get since I was obviously a new player myself at one point. I want to say it took me about 20 hours on just Cash Out alone to fully understand the ins and outs of the game mode, and even after that 20-hour mark, I was still constantly learning new shit about the game mode every single game session. When you pair this game mode with the general gameplay of the game, it can end up turning a lot of people off from the finals since it requires a couple dozen hours of time invested into the game to get a good grasp on how the game and game mode functions. I already talked about how the game is fast-paced yet requires you to be strategic at all times, but when you pair this all up with a game mode that requires you to use your brain even more, it can get pretty overwhelming. And since there's a lot of shit to learn from this game and a lot to adapt to, a lot of players are just gonna ditch this game to go back to the FPS game they came from that they've spent years playing. But I do have a solution to this that I think should be considered for the game's future. What the developers need to do to get the attention of new players and to keep them playing for much longer is that they need to make a much more casual and simple game mode than Cash Out. I don't want the developers to dumb down the gameplay at all, but it'd be wise if they made a new game mode that is new player friendly, that can give new players a chance to only focus on playing the game so that they can learn the gameplay. And this will give people time to familiarize themselves with how the game functions without throwing them into matches where they're constantly outmatched since they have no idea what the f is going on. But what type of game modes would be simple and new player friendly? I don't think a team deathmatch type game mode would coincide with the style of the finals, but I wouldn't be upset if this is something they added. If they could put a twist on it to make it unique to the finals, that would be awesome. But no matter what, I do think they need a new and simple game mode to the finals because I genuinely believe if they were to add another game mode that's simple and great for new players, that it would bring back a lot of new players and bring more attention to this amazing game. For Season 2, they already added a new game mode, but I honestly honestly think this game mode is pretty dog shit for both new and experienced players, and this is definitely not the type of game mode you want to play to learn how this game works. So, in my opinion, the developers need to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that'll keep new players playing the game. Like I said, it needs to be something simple and casual enough for new players to keep playing. The gameplay is already chaotic enough, and you need to have an amazing game sense to excel in cash out. But if players had the time to just learn the fundamentals of the game without worrying about a complicated objective, this could very well be the solution to keeping new players in the game. This game mode needs to satisfy the FPS players that enjoy simple yet fast-paced gameplay, and the game mode also needs to satisfy the FPS players that enjoy more tactical approaches of a game. If a suitable game mode comes out that appeals to both types of FPS gamers, it'll finally give them a chance to learn how the game functions without making them too overwhelmed. And if new players are sticking with this game, that'll increase the popularity of the finals. At least that's what I think. Let me know what y'all think. Anyways, if you watched this video this far, you are a certified gaming warlord. I also stream on Twitch quite often, so feel free to swing by. That being said, I'm out of here. Remember to stay hydrated and to stay swaggy. Peace.